Well, I am here with our former chair, Tony Mitchell. Thank you so much for being here and coming on the show today.
Pleasure, Steph. Thank you.
So you obviously announced that you were stepping down at our season launch last week. Can you tell us a little bit about what led to your decision?
Look, I felt it was time for a change, and another opportunity was sort of put to me to help another competition, which sort of came out of left field, to be honest. I felt that with that opportunity, and more importantly, I thought it was time that to give other people an opportunity to lead the competition as such. In regards with Mark, Sargent, who's been deputy chair and fantastic support for me over many years to take over the mantle and put his brand on, hopefully our brand, or form our East brand, to direct the competition in his vision. And that came sort of all of a sudden. I've been appointed as chair for West Gippsland football netball
Very
competition. It's a big challenge us moving forward, and hopefully help them to get their footy in netball. It's not broken, it's just sort of polishing the stone, as they say.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, you have been involved with local football and netball and our competition for a long period of time, so I want to get some highlights from you. I know there'll be plenty to choose from, but just a couple that stand out.
Oh, look, probably the announcement of our 20 years of netball, that was a great step that we made. And when Ben O'Brien was our general manager in the old Yarra Valley Mountain District Football League days, Ben approached me at one stage and said, look, to really align to the country football theme, we need netball. And we spoke about it at length of how we're going to do it. And probably the biggest commitment was to get the Shires involved, Murrindindi, Yarra Rangers and Gadinia at that stage, where to develop courts, because we had a couple of rough courts and they were rough initially. And so we approached the clubs, and a couple of the presidents said, you got no hope of ever getting that up. And I think we started with 7 teams from memory, and Jodie Chandler and Anita Woods got heavily involved, with Kate Upton coming on a bit later, and to sort of push the development of the netball, and it's grown from there.
Absolutely.
Ben pushed it. In those days we were affiliated with the Victorian Country Footy League. They sort of opened the ideas with open arms to develop the competition, and and now it's history.
Yeah, so 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, and to see where it's come from and to where it is now, and all the girls and women involved has been fantastic. So, and I think all the clubs now would say it's been one of the biggest things that we did. Another big buzz that we had was back in the days when we were trying to get into the top 16 leagues in the state to play interleague. Shane Smith and myself were pretty committed to that program to offer the best footy, and in those days, once we got established the netball, and we travelled all over the state under the WorkSafe banner, which they were really keen to do to promote the game. We had some great trips. The early days it was more like a footy trip than being fair to you. with interleague. Mildura was one of them. It was a funny trip. But look, the board supported it. We put a lot of effort into it, and something that we qualified. We had to play Geelong in district at Warrialloc, and our Damien Monkhurst played. He hadn't been long out of the game, and he was coaching Warrialloc, and we had Andy Goodwin from Wandon, and I think it was a memory about, we played at Warrior, poured rain. I think it was 82 or 83 points to 2 points. We beat Geelong and District convincingly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and one of their points was one of our guys rushed it, so he got into a bit of trouble for rushing the point. But, and we played in that under the Work Safe banner, and we did really well. And over the years, and slowly progressed ourselves up the ladder. I think we got to 12 in the rankings, and here we were sort of, I thought, a boutique competition, playing against some pretty major competitions, and then they folded the metros like Eastern, Northern and Riddell and Southern, and they all came in, and then it got expanded to 40.
Yeah.
So we were still ranked in the top 13. So we were pretty proud of that. And, and I suppose all the relationships that you develop over the years. And I was really proud of the relationships and sort of partnerships through Interleague. I used to get a massive buzz out of, we'd go to functions and events, and you'd see opposition players who became really good mates.
Yeah.
And same with the girls. And I used to get a buzz. You'd go and watch a home and away game, and there'd be a couple of guys from Mount Evan that played Interleague against the Monbulk blokes, and they'd be all good mates, and they'd be sitting there, having a chat about it, and that was a real big buzz. I just loved the camaraderie that they built, and the friendships. In the battlefield out playing footy or netball, but that was a real big buzz for us. And I'm hoping in the future that Interleague comes back, because I see part of our role is that we give everyone the opportunity to play the best footy or best netball they can play.
Absolutely.
And that was all part of it, Steph. So they were big buzzes, and we had a couple. There was some funny times where. I always had my phone in my pocket, and when I think we were playing with Zach Mildura and Graham Allen, who was an area manager for the VCBL, said, "Oh, would you mind saying thank you to the hosting Sunraysia?" "Yeah, no worries, Graham, we'll do that." Anyway, I always had my phone in my pocket, and then the players would start ringing me when I was talking, and stupid me, never had it on silent. The phone would be going, and I'd have a look who it was and hang up. And another player would ring me. So that used to happen all the time.
So they were sitting in the crowd.
They're out there
watching you.
We'll ring off. And then in the end, I'll be going, "You ring me again." So they were just, that was sort of how it was. And I know there was times where we had to ring guys because blokes had got injured and they weren't picked, and they said, "Oh, you should have picked me in the first place. I wouldn't have let you down." And there was one time we went to Kerrang, and we went up in Grove, and we used to take all the first aid equipment with us. And my daughter, my middle daughter, was doing the footy record in those days, and they went to Kerrang. The bus broke down at the Kerrang pub, which was Gordon Sumner, who coached Warburton and played at Warburton, and they were all at Gordon's pub, and they've rung me up. We were at this stage, we were back, I think, nearly Betty at that stage. We got a phone call. "Oh, we're putting the league's credit card on the bar." Poor old Leo he's trying to control all these people, and oh my God. Anyway, so it's a shame, thank God we're out of there. So they were just things like that. They were funny times, and I remember we were playing them, and Gordon actually was coaching Central Vic, and we were playing at Kerrang, which is a big ground, and they had this guy called Elwyn Davey playing for him, and he was only 16, and my God, he killed us before he got drafted to Essendon. And actually Essendon were hiding him up there to draft him, so there was a little bit of that going on, but they were funny days, but we created a huge bond with people, and it gave Mark Sanderland's an opportunity to coach, and Mark's been back at Eastern Rangers helping them. Now he's back at Upway and been on the board, and they've been really big buzzers just to see people develop and get involved. Yes, look, it's been good, and look, we've had to make, as a board, we've had to make some tough decisions over the journey. They haven't pleased everyone, but we've made decisions always on the basis at board level that we're trying to do the best we can for the comp.
Absolutely.
I don't shy away from that. There's been decisions and we've gone to grounds and clubs haven't been happy and they've expressed their unhappiness to us, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's always gone to a vote at board level, and there's been numerous times where I've been outvoted. People don't believe that. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it's always been discussed at board level, and the decisions have been made at board level.
Absolutely.
I don't put my hand on the heart to say that, but there'll be a few that say that's rubbish.
Well, you've just mentioned, and we have seen significant growth and change across our competition over your 30 years of service, such as netball, transformation from country to netball, country to metro. Yeah. What is it about this region and our competition that has kept you continuously wanting to represent and champion this community?
Look, I got a lot out of footy when I played, and I enjoyed it. And I got a lot of mates through football. I just felt that it was important for us. We've had cyclonic people going through difficult times at clubs, and we all know who they are and where they've been. But I think the biggest buzz for me was I used to love going to finals or going to big games where you got women and children and families either at the netball court or across watching the football. And it gives me no greater pleasure than you see kids out in the ground kicking a footy and having fun because mum and dad are there.
Yeah.
Or they might be volunteering, helping a club, or they're there watching mum and dad play, or their sister play, or their brother play. That was my motivation. I wanted to make it better. From where the competition was, when I first started in '96, when Shane Smith, Graham Tuplin and myself came on the board, to see where there was obviously some internal issues with clubs and the board at that stage, just to where it is now, to the standard of the footy and netball, where we haven't had anything. Well, all we've done is provided the grounds and helped provide the grounds and the courts, to where it is now, to be where we're recognised, where we've got a business where we're employing 7 people. That's something that's great. True, and I've been a small facet of that, but that's what I've loved, And now, as I said, it's time for me to walk away and let other people do, and hopefully continue the growth and the passion which we've got. That's been a good thing, a real good thing. But we've had some bad times and not so good times, and where we've had challenges with grounds and things like that. But I look now in this region, the facilities we've got are second to none, and I can categorically say they're second to none. You look at Powelltown now, new pavilion. You look at Seville, the potato chip. Everyone knows what the potato chip was like, but through guys like Mick Shaw, who's been there, passionate about their club, and where it's gone to, they're getting a new pavilion later this year. Wandon, what they were able to achieve at Wandon, used to be absolutely terribly playing there, but great facilities, great ground, even small, but it's still a great facility. To Mount Evelyn, look what they've achieved through Mel Dark and his group. And that ground, I coached at Mount Evelyn, and for what we used to play at, to what it is now is sensational. You know, you look at Alex, what Ray Steiger and his committee were able to achieve after years and years and years of persistence to now have a fantastic facility. Yeah, you're right, it's a little bit older, but the ground's great. You can go right through every club. You know, you look at Pakenham, you look at Officer, you look at Monbulk, you look at Upway. They've all got something new. All right, Belgrave's probably the next one on the list, and Heels will with their pavilion. But really, the facilities in this competition are really second to none. You know, you go to, you know, we talk about Eastern, our neighbours, and I look at their facilities. They're nothing like what we've been able to achieve, which is just a feather in everyone's cap. You know, and,
Absolutely.
you know, you look at Emerald Juniors, you know, look at Emerald Seniors, you know, that you just go, Gembrook, you know, Gembrook went through two and a bit years of pain during COVID to get what they've got.
Yeah.
You know, so we've been a small part of that, but we've hopefully given the clubs the impetus to go to the Shire and look, this is where we are, this is what we're doing for our community. It's fantastic. So I'm really proud of the clubs for that, and I'm really glad for the little percentage that we've had to contribute to support them through the competition. So
Absolutely.
And like I said, Steph, I just love watching the kids and they're enjoying themselves at the games. It's what it's about.
Yeah, and I think your perspective's really good too, because a lot of people who are new coming into those clubs, they actually won't know any different now.
No,
you know, those are brand new facilities. That's what they're walking into, and they don't know any different. So
well, I can tell you I'll tell you, when I coached Sylvan, we played against Swan, and Sylvan was a shocking ground, just red mud, and we used to wear Geelong colours. I used to take my footy jumper home, put it on my paling fence and hose it off before my wife would let me put it in the washing machine. So, you know, even what they've got now, even though they're not in our competition, but I look back at those days to where we played footy. It was some pretty tough footy. We didn't give a stuff about the women. That's that's just the way it was. You'd have your X amount of beers after training to where it is now, where they have proper structured meals and all that for everyone to be inclusive. God, it's so much better. I wish I was 30 years younger and involved in that, but it's just so much better now, and we had to change, and we have. And it's great that they can be classed as community hubs. You know, I think from memory, when Andrew and Nick Peterson and Ian Snell spoke to me what they wanted to do at Upway, massive challenge was dealing with government, Melbourne Water, drains running under the middle of their ground, to the education department, to see what they were able to achieve. And I think they got up to 24 user groups. What a buzz, you know, through the persistence of those guys in particular, Andrew and Nick, you know, who I'm good friends with, to see what they were able to achieve, you know, for their community. You can, you know, go down there and it's just fantastic to watch the games from. They got to, you know, do some work for the women and the girls, there's no doubt. But, you know, from where it was
to where it is now, I just admire the people immensely. And hopefully we've through our direction and commitment, we've, you know, as I said, been a minute part of trying to help them, you know. I can remember when Upway got their new lights and Nick Peterson rang me up. He said, you need to get out here, and we got some problems. So we go down there, and I'd organised a guy who did lighting through the BCFL, Shane Ward. He said, get hold of this guy, he'll come down from Sydney, and he flew down from Sydney, and we're walking around with a lux meter. And he go, we're under Nick's going, I told you this pocket was no good, you know, but we were able to convince the Shire it wasn't safe. They'd spent a bomb, you know, 150 grand, which the club contributed a fair bit of money towards, to actually to get it improved. So, you know, I was more than happy to get involved wherever we could to make it better for the guys and girls to play the game. You know, look, we're nearly there.
You know, the competition's nearly there with facilities. You know, just fantastic to go to the games. And nothing better than you get in there after the game and you have a beer with a couple of blokes and there's kids running everywhere. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Never happened in my day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Well, I do want to mention that your role on the board and as a chair is a voluntary role. I think some people can sort of forget that all our board members are volunteers.
Yeah.
And I know many of the friendships that you formed with the community, they're also volunteers at their own clubs.
Yeah.
And that's just happened over time. So can you speak a little bit about the importance of volunteers in any local sporting competition, but particularly the difference it's made in ours?
Yes, definitely. Like I just admire the people that put their hand up and try to help with the clubs, you know, and generate the revenue to keep their clubs going. It's a massive job, and you know, I've looked over the years, and a few have asked me, you're getting paid to do your job, and I'm still waiting for my first check. But in saying that, I went away for 7 years. This is when I first met Brett Connell when I went to the BCFL, and I got an honorarium there of $4,000 a year. Happy to share that. But that was to cover our fuel and our phone, and you can imagine that didn't cover it too much. But we've never ever looked at an honorarium for our competition. We felt that it was about putting it back into the competitions. But again, to admire people, and I've rung people up, and where you at with your club, where your player levels at, and I know it's a massive challenge, but from our perspective, we've got to understand where clubs are at. If they need help, we'll put our hand up and go and help them. You know, I can remember years ago when Emerald were in real trouble, they had 3 volunteers for their whole club. And I remember we called a meeting of all the clubs to say, look, Emerald's in dire straits. Can we give them a chop out? And we had blokes like Mick Shaw went up and helped them. We had Youngie from Heels Lyle go and do the lines and just stuff like that. And that's where I felt the community spirit was really good. And you know, something I've probably said numerous times, we're only as good as the weakest club. And there's no good beating up on clubs. And I know it can happen. Circumstances can make that happen, but we don't have clubs. We don't have opposition. We don't have a competition. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I can remember talking to Jimmy Young about it from here, so he goes, you got to do something. I said, well, we've got to help, but there's got to be a portion of that help. They've got to help themselves. So I'll go and do it. And he did. He went up and marked the lines, and even talking to the guys that do the lines over the years, I admire them. They're at grounds at 6 o'clock in the morning. Saturday morning, I'm not out of bed.
Me neither.
But they're out there doing it, Steph, and that's what I admire with these people. And Jimmy used to do it. Trevor Spicer does. I think Trevor's still doing it. And we had Vic Mays at Mount Evelyn. Like Vic Mays helped us at Kilsyth. He'd go down and mark the lines. He could be very abrupt, Vic, but at the end of the day, they did it. And he'd go to, I know he used to go at Mount Evelyn 6 in the morning. He said, I go down there at 6 in the morning because no one's down there annoying me. And that was his theory. But again, these people in the background who have done this work, and after the game, they walk around with wheelie bins picking up rubbish, just stuff like that.
First there, last out, usually.
Yeah. And I know during finals where they're late because we're doing what we do, but at the end of the day, they're doing it week in, week out. We've got about 5 or 6 weeks as a league to do it. And that's what I admire. And from the people stocking the fridges, getting the food to the canteen, all this, it's just such a massive thing. And then you get some people, and I haven't seen it very often, but, abrupt, it's got to be better, put your hand up. Many years ago, I had words of advice from a few people, and I said, well, I don't really have to do this. You got the better ideas, you put your hand up, and that's what, and I was always happy to step away, but the motive was to keep it going. And look, we had to make some changes, and we included clubs. Probably didn't work out how we wanted to, but when the Southeast came, or when we spoke to them and thought that the fit was right, particularly on the netball and front, it didn't work out how we wanted it. And to be honest, we thought if we got a couple of those clubs, it'd be a bonus. But we got nearly all of them, apart from Tooradin. At the end of the day, it probably didn't work out as well as we wanted, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, the motive was to keep the competition competitive, and to promote the competition, and they were the motives.
Yeah, of course.
100% the motives.
Absolutely. So in your statement last week as well that we put out, and you can find that on our website if you want to have a look, but you talked about having a bit of a succession plan in place, I suppose, with your Vice Chair, Mark Sargent, who we spoke about earlier. But can you give us some insight into Mark and what that handover process has looked like so far?
Yeah, good question. Look, Mark and I have worked together for quite a few years now. We've basically been on the finance committee to help Brett, and we supported Sharon and Cameron in regards to structuring budgets. We go back quite a few times on where we think things should be at, as in income streams and expenditure streams, and the whole motive is to try and keep the costs down. But then in this current environment, it's tough. We all know how tough it is out there. Dealing with my work. I had a meeting today, and how tough it is for our industry, and let alone here we are in what I call a pleasure industry, to try and provide people an outlet on a Saturday or a Sunday. But look, Mark's he'll go a different way to me, and that's fine. I trust Mark's judgment. He listens. He's a good listener. He understands the game, and he understands what we're trying to achieve. Every day there's a different challenge. But it was well and truly time to give him an opportunity to put his stamp on where he thinks we should be, and that's fine. He's supported by, we've got three great ladies in Josette and Lauren taking up the deputy role. I'm absolutely rapt that she's done that. She was a bit gobsmacked when we asked her. And Holly, with her netball knowledge, and Lauren's netball knowledge, and Josette, she's very passionate about women in sport, which is great. And then he's supported by Ryan Ford. Ryan's knowledge of footy, and you ring him up and he'll tell you everyone over the southeast side who's who. And I have some great conversations with him, and with the new inclusion of Steve White, to come in. Met Steve once, but had a good friend of mine ring me, you need to talk to this fellow, which is great. And Mark organised the meeting. We've had a meeting, and I think Brett's met Steve as well, and he'll be a great inclusion because he's come from an umpiring background down at Eastern, and he's a superintendent in the police force, so he's out in the public eye, and he's really keen, which is, you can never dampen keenness. So I think he'd be a great inclusion. And, if we can get a couple of extra people to help, that's well and good. But look, it's left in safe hands. You guys do a great job here. I'm wrapped with all your progress and where you guys are all at, which is great. You're all passionate about it. That's what we want.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not 9 to 5, we turn up, beauty, clock on, we're out the gate, as I call it. You're not like that. And that's, you know, and Brett's created that environment in Cameron, and that's good. You know, you got to want to come to work.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm proud of that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So while you are stepping down as chair, we know this competition is very close to your heart, and I'm sure you'll still be keeping an eye on us moving forward. But what are you most excited about in regards to the future of this competition and how it could even further evolve?
I think, look, it's important now that we stabilise. You know, we've had, rightly or wrongly, clubs leave us, and you know, I've got my views on that, but you know, I strongly believe that it's time to stabilise. It's trying to, as I said earlier, about making sure everyone survives as a club, making sure we're there to support each other as clubs. Like I said, you can have the field of battle or the court of battle, but once that's done, we've got to become that massive community.
Yeah.
You know, I used to hate blokes I played against, and then after the game you go and have a beer and you got on really well, and that's important. But I think, you know, we'll hark back to the decision we made 20 years ago about the netball. It was the best thing we ever did, and I can tell you, hand on heart, that a few of our clubs wouldn't have got through where they've got through to now without the netball and the female touch, as I call it. And I think that has made us so unique. You know, I look at the girls that have gone through our competitions and where they've ended up. In particular, like, you know, the partnership we've struck with North East players, I think it's just fantastic. You know, our job is to create pathways.
Yep.
And, you know, with Danny Ryan being involved after so many years, you know, at Warrior and loves the old Yarra Valley, loves Outer East, to now be involved at Eastern Ranges. We've created those pathways.
Absolutely.
A lot of our kids weren't getting looked at, which was just rubbish. Because the Eastern Ranges for so long were just so Eastern Football League centric. You know, I've heard a guy there just playing bush footy, which used to really annoy me. But at the end of the day now, we've got a good flow of kids coming to Eastern, and we've got a good flow of young women and girls playing at North East Plays, which is great.
Absolutely.
So that's what we've got to be committed to, you know, and we're all not at that level, you know. Probably one of my fondest memories, and talking about Danny Ryan, was I remember we used to always have problems with water boys and girls. They'd run out in the ground and they'd get in the hole, you know, purposely stand in a hole or a trainer and all that. And we were all all over it a bit. Anyway, the best water boy we had was young Andy, which was from Yarra Junction. And I can remember the biggest bars, he used to love Rhino, he used to love Danny. And we invited him to be our water boy for interleague. And so I know he stepped out. Greg Mitchell, who's involved with Yarra Junction, living legend. Greg's a life member and also very heavily involved with Yarra Junction Cricket Club. And I played a lot of cricket against Greg. And I rang Greg and I said, look, this is what we want to do. We want to take Andy away on interleague. And he goes, oh, righto. And Andy was just a ripper. And anyway, Greg said, oh, look, I've got to talk to his mother. So, well, you do that. So he came back 2 days later. And if people don't know Andy, he's had challenges, you know, and he's an absolute ripper, loves the footy, and he's just I admire him immensely. And anyway, we got the all clear, and he came to the league, and he was like a young fella in a lolly shop that he just wanted to run water, and he just, they're fantastic stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a bit emotional about that.
Yeah, because Danny would have been a coach of Interleague at the time.
Yeah, Danny took over, and it was just great.
Yeah, that's the stuff you remember forever, right? Like just to have all those good memories.
Yeah. And it was just such a buzz. And I think we even won.
I think we even won. He wouldn't have cared anyway, as long as he got to run water.
And look, I can remember other days where he was running water for Yarra Junction, straight on, straight off. And he used to keep the crowd in order too.
Give him a little bit on the way past.
He did. No need for that, and all that sort of stuff. And it was a buzz.
Well, that's exactly what this is about, right? Like all community sport, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
It's making, even if it's a little impact on so many people's lives and the wider community, and making everybody feel a part of it.
Oh yeah, and I think that's, we've had some battles with people, and like everywhere, you've had people that just don't get it. But it's just important that people understand what the fabric's about, because we've always sat down and tried to make it as fair as we possibly can for anyone. And like I said, there's decisions, and we've issued fines and things like that. It's to actually make us better. At the end of the day, we made decisions, and some real tough decisions at times, even as recently as 2 years ago, where we decided to make Premier 12, and we copped a bucket load of flack for that. And that's okay. But in the end, we got, it was done for a reason, and the rationale behind it was, we thought it through. We had 4 meetings about that. To get through that,
and the decision is always made with the best of the competition in mind. Everyone might not agree, but it's always made with the best intentions.
Oh, and I get that. I get that. Every day we all make decisions in life, and some, we regret. That's life. But again, Mark will carry that through. Like I said, he'll work very close with you guys. He works very close with the board, and he'll work close with the clubs. But we've gone through a strat plan. We've gone through our future directions, and we've always been committed to that. Now, it's okay. The way I look at it, you take your blinkers off. This is about competition. This is not about my backyard or Steph's backyard or whichever club's backyard. This is what's best for the competition, and that's what we do. And like I said, Mark will progress the business as within here, the best under consultation with the staff and with the clubs on where we end up.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm confident of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with me and having this chat, and I'm sure everyone will be really looking forward to it and really grateful for some final insights. And we will miss you, but we do wish you all the very best at West Skippy moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. Thanks for your time. Thank everyone.